Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. A couple things up front. First of all, I apologize about my voice, or if I have to cough or what have you. I've got a head cold going on here. Secondly, if anybody tried to attend the weekly workshop yesterday, I apologize greatly about that. There was a scheduling conflict. Rick needed the room for another group, and so we had to cancel yesterday's weekly workshop, and so this is probably a mixed group tonight. And there's also, in addition to the monthly group and the weekly group, there's also some people I know that are going to be here tonight that don't use TraderVision now, and therefore I need to address things from the perspective of somebody who's never seen it. And so I apologize about all that in advance. I'm going to zip through about 5 or 10 minutes of slides, probably less than 10, and then I will go to charts and demos and see if we can't plan out a couple trades, and we'll take it wherever you want to go. If you have any particular questions or particular things that you want to see, I will be happy to show them to you. This is going to be a little bit different than any software demo you've ever seen. Certainly different than any sales pitch, because I'm going to show it to you warts and all. An ebook for this software? No, I don't know how I'm working on a manual, but there is nothing. There's a completed manual on the tutorials page, but it's completed so far. Let's put it that way. It's very, very basic. And I guess I'll start with that fact. When you're using TraderVision, what you're really buying into is Ed. You're buying into me. My vision for the product. I'm the one that's doing the support at this point. I'm the one that's doing the documentation and the tutorial videos. So you have the good sides and the bad sides of having to deal with Ed. So there's that to be aware of. This is not Microsoft. I don't have 2 people working on documentation and 10 people working on videos, and somebody else working on marketing materials and all of that. It's basically myself, and to a lesser extent Doug and Rick. And it's just a fact that you've got to really learn the software before they can take over anything. It's nothing bad. It's not them shirking or anything, but I'm the one that's been doing the development, and therefore I'm the only one that's in a position early on here to do much of this kind of work. So like I said, I'm presenting it warts and all. That is potentially seen as a downside. To the upside, you know who I am, you know where to find me, and there's no bureaucracy between us. And so that's an upside. You have to think about these things. Before I forget, that link is live. You can use it, and that will take you to the landing page for the product, and will give you some information on it and take you to the purchase page if you want to do that. The reason I point that out is because this is a limited time deal that you can take advantage of that will save you some money. So I'm just pointing that out. Tonight's agenda is I'm going to cover some questions that traders should ask themselves, what TraderVision can do, what are the pieces of TraderVision, go through that limited deal again, and then we'll get into demo and trade plans and Q&A, and I'll stay as long as you have questions. Again, this is because there are people in the room that Rick and Doug have pointed us here who really don't know what the software is at this point. So Trader Vision is really made to answer some questions, and every trader should ask themselves, do they have good trading rules in place? Do they know what sort of trading rules they should be observing on every trade? I double click there. Do you know what setups works for you? And do you know which ones don't? Do you plan all of your trades? And then do you trade those plans once you create them? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And that's what Trader Vision is built to do. It's built on a continuous improvement cycle of setting goals, selecting trades to meet those goals, validating trades against your goals and against your trading rules, planning those trades, managing those trades, and then analyzing your performance so that you can improve everything. So Trader Vision can help you develop your trading process and the rules under which you trade. And we'll get into what that means when we do a demo. It'll help you improve the quality of the trades you take. I think we've all been in a situation where we took a trade and in hindsight, it was a poor risk reward, or it was a poor setup for our trading mentality or psychology, or it was just a bad thing to chase somebody's recommendation. It'll help you eliminate or identify and eliminate the trading problems that you have, whether that's chasing or setting your stops too tight, or being scared out of a trade early. It'll help you address all of these things. It helps you control your emotions. Again, forearmed is forewarned, or forewarned is forearmed. I'm not sure which that is. But basically, if you understand what the plan looks like and what the various scenarios are, your emotions are much less raw when you're actually managing a trade. It tracks your performance for you. And then it automates all the paperwork involved with that. I've been trading for 20 years or so, and I've got a mountain of paper, and I've got hard drives full of spreadsheets that I use to track my trades, and trying to go back and use that data, collate it, organize it, analyze it, and slice it and dice it was basically a nightmare, and it always was. The idea, or one of the ideas behind Trader Vision, is to automate all of that so that it's easy to slice and dice your performance. It's easy to go back and see what you were thinking a year ago. It's easy to see what sort of mistakes you made, again, on trades 6 months or a year or 2 years ago, so that you can see what you're doing to progress and identify those problems that are systematic. The whole idea is that you can do more of what works for you and less of what doesn't. So let's talk about what makes up Trader Vision. Basically, at this moment, there are 8 components. We call them widgets. The first one is a goal planning tool that helps you set long-term trading objectives and break that down into what do I need to do on a trade-by-trade basis, so that I have some tools. In other words, how much do I need to make? What do I need to keep my average loss below to help you manage those trades? It has a dashboard to tell you what's going on in your account right now with the trades you have open, with your recent performance, how much cash is available, etc. Like most trading applications, it has a charting package, and I'll be perfectly frank with you, and I will show you that this is not as strong as I want it to be. If we compare it to something like TC2000, it's not up to snuff. That's just the way it is, and I would bet on me rather than Warden. I'm just telling you, and maybe that's egotistical, but the ground we've made up and the fact we've done it for a year, and they've had 20-some years to get to the state they're in, I like our trajectory a little bit better. We've got watch lists, again, so you can track information, and I'll show you some improvements we've made in the last week on that. we've got, let's skip the next two. Again, we've got a performance log that breaks down and looks at every trade so that you can slice it and dice it. Say, what do I do when I enter trades on Friday, or what happens when I enter trades on Monday, or what happens when I trade this signal or that pattern or this signal in that pattern? What happens when I commit this mistake, I chase on an entry? What happens when I set my stop too tight? And you can see in actual percentages and dollars what the differences are between your performance when you make those mistakes or do those certain things, and what you do overall, and what you do when you're doing other certain things. Maybe this is the tool that will help you find out that with my personality, I do very well when I trade the J-hook pattern, or I do very well when I trade a Morningstar signal or something of that nature. But I do poorly when I trade a bullish kicker or something of that nature. I just do poorly because I end up making a mistake like chasing or something. And then the last widget before I double back is Account Manager. And the idea behind Account Manager is to keep TraderVision in sync with your brokerage, so that if the brokerage charges you a fee, you can record that. If you make a deposit, you can record that. If you make a withdrawal, again, you can record that, keeping your balance and all transactions in sync between TraderVision and your brokerage. Now, doubling back, it has a built-in trade log. Some people call them trading diaries, some people call them trading journals. Essentially, it is a list of all of your trades that provides you information about them. You can see which ones are open, which ones are planned, which ones are closed. And then each one of those can be drilled down into for a great deal of information to help you validate and plan your trades and then execute them. So that's enough on the components. Let's talk about the deal. Basically, if you order by the end of the month, in other words, before March 1st, you can save yourself $149 in setup fee. You're going to get for $37, you get 60 days to use the product. If you want to cancel before then, it's a subscription. You can cancel it at any time. But if you wait until after March 1st, you've got to pay $149 plus the $37 for essentially the same thing. So this is just to make you aware that you have this option. I strongly suggest, if you're interested at all, you take advantage of it and go from there. Let me see if I can post that link in the... GW, it's just the cost of the software. You would be surprised how much time I spend providing support for people to just get them installed and started. But essentially that's what it's going to cover. Okay, so that's the link if you want it. Enough of these slides. Let's do some hands-on stuff. I'm going to switch over here to my desktop. Can everybody see my desktop now? Excellent. Okay. Well, this is TraderVision as it generally looks if you've chosen the dark style. Now, I apologize, but I can't make it good for everybody. Some people have told me that they prefer the black style. Some people have told me they prefer the white. I've just chosen black because those are the most recent ones that I've got requests for. But you can go back and forth anytime you want. Under Tools Options, you can flip back and forth between dark and light and no style at all. The first thing I want you to notice is that there's a ribbon across the top. Anytime there's a new version available, that's where this ribbon will be. It's kind of a tan or light yellow type color. It has a download link right on it. If you click that download link, the download will start in your default browser for your computer. That's all I wanted to show you, and you can close that whenever you want. Let's just go through the widgets real quick. This is the dashboard that I told you about. There seems to be a little lag, but I'll try to slow down here. This is the dashboard that I told you about. It shows you for this particular account, and you can have as many accounts as you want. This one has 52,000, almost 52,400, of which almost $9,100 is in open positions, leaving about 43.3 in available funds. I've got 3 trades open, and that represents 17% of the account. 82% of the accounts in cash. There's no short trades; they're all long, so that's where they sit. It defaults up here in this top right corner to recent performance. It defaults to 30 days. If I wanted to make this a one-day look at what I did in the last day, if you want to look at your, we had a request for this to see what my P&L was for the day. You can do that. You set that to 1, and it shows you for the trades that you closed today, what was your P&L. If you want to look at 6 months, you can do that. If you want to set to, a year, you can do that. But like I said, it comes defaulted to 30 days, and that's what it shows you is how you've done in comparison to yourself and in comparison to the index or vehicle. In this case, for this account, SPY, I've chosen to measure this account against the SPY, which essentially says I want to see how I do versus what the S&P 500 does during the same period of time. So during the same days that the trades were open, what did the SPY do? During the days that these 2 trades were open, I've averaged 13.1%, and the SPY has lost 3.25 just about. We have some graphs here that show us the same information that we talked about up above. We can see that we have 17% and just a little bit long. We have 82% and a half, or 2/3, available in cash, and we have no short trades. These are the open trades, and you can see them graphically quickly. You can see I've got a $13.50 loss in this, I think it's First Bank or something like that. TCAP, I'm up $65, and VIPS is, I'm up $35, and then of course these are all broken down here. Any of these that I want to open up, I can double click and open up the trade. Let's go on and talk about the chart. Again, this is what our charting package looks like. Looks like the screen's slowly catching up here. This is what our charting package looks like. If you right click, you can add, again, I'm waiting on the screen. You can add a number of indicators to the list. It's not an extensive list yet. We don't have the volatility stop in it yet. We don't have BOP. Balance of power. Those are 2 things people have asked for. We will add them, and this will get better and stronger. It defaults to 100 days worth of data, but if I wanted 200 days or 500 days or whatever I wanted, it will give me that, and it looks that up pretty quickly. But basically anything more than about 100 candles, and it starts to get crowded on the screen. As I said, this is not as ideal as I would want it to be. We've got the volume across the bottom here, but it's still a work in progress, and we are working on it. We will improve it here shortly. Here's the account manager that I told you about. Again, you have, for every account, you have a list of transactions in the account for whatever period you want to look at. You have a list of your open positions. When we integrate this to a brokerage, you would have a list of open orders that have yet to be filled or canceled. And then down here you can enter new transactions, such as I mentioned, you can add a brokerage fee if they charge you an account fee or something. You can make a cash deposit or a cash withdrawal, that sort of thing. Performance, I can't really do much in terms of performance here. I've only had 2 trades, but essentially the blue area is, again, I'm waiting on the screen to catch up. The blue area here is showing you what your account has done. The gold line is, in this case, the SPY, which is what I've chose to measure this account against. And down here you can see the individual trades. But there are a whole slew of built-in reports, as well as you can write your own reports, deciding which fields you want to compare and how you want to slice and dice that data. And we will get more into that as I get deeper into doing tutorials. It's not something I want to try to tackle tonight. But basically you're getting a reporting package on top of a database to allow you to either use the pre-canned reports that we give you or write your own. The goal planning that I talked about, it's basically the starting point for all trading. You've got to know where you're going, otherwise you don't know if you're lost or whether you're making good time. So you set long-term objectives for your account, and then you break it down into what I call a plan to reach that goal, which is essentially short-term goals. What do I need to do on a trade-by-trade basis? And you figure that out by average win, average loss size, the number of trades you do per month, and what your win rate is. And it shows you historically what your numbers are for your particular database. But as a brand new user, you won't have that information. But year 2 or after 6 months, you will have a pretty good idea of what you've done to that point. And you can see, well, you know, I can tell the computer that my average win size is $1,000, but I've only been averaging $300 per win. Maybe I need to adjust my goals because they're unrealistic, those sorts of things. And then you can do some position sizing here. So you decide what % of your account you want to put in each trade. It tells you how many dollars that comes out to be, and then it tells you, based on that size, you would have to have an average of wins and losses of plus 6% in this case, which means I've only got to pull $100 out of each trade to enable me to actually exceed my goals up here by about 4.5% over the course of a year. And of course you can set as many sets of goals as you want. That's the idea, is that once you're achieving your goals for a certain period of time, you know, maybe 2 or 3 months, maybe 6 months, you'll have to decide for yourself. Then it's time to up your goal and raise your expectations for yourself and continue to improve. Let's just look at some watch lists here, because this is something that we've improved in just the last week, and I think you're really going to like it. So this is the information. You put in a ticker. Somebody give me a ticker. I don't care what it is, particularly if you know one that's going to report in the next few days. Nothing? Okay. Well, I've got several on here. What we can tell us about each of these tickers. Oh, SQ is going to... Okay. Okay, so you can see we have the ticker and the company name, the last price they traded at and the time that last trade was. You can see the last 5 days worth of candles here, with each of them showing you the open, high, low, and close. Percent change for the day, both in dollars and percent. The volume on a 30-day, today's volume, and then the average 30-day volume. You can see where it's at in its 52-week range and what the high and low in that range was, as well as what industry and sector it's in. It shows you the next date of earnings report. Now, the one thing that I will caution you on, and I will just give you some examples here. I can see that CZZ reported today. Not a problem. That's great. GHL reported 2.6. So it doesn't show me the next date. It just shows me that they reported 2.6. So I can, roughly say it's going to be about 5.6 when they report again. Not exact, but for a swing trader, that will do. This is just a function of our data source, and we're looking for an additional data source, but the problem is, excuse me, I had to take a drink. The problem is that the SEC doesn't require them to report like a year in advance what all the report dates are going to be. So for a lot of companies, it's hit and miss what kind of data we've got. But TCAP reports 228. COG reports 223 before the open. AWI, Armstrong World Industry, reports 226 before the open. IBP reports 226, and I don't know if it's before the open or after the market because they didn't publish that information. DY reports 830. I know, because I looked it up, that DY actually reports in the next day or two. However, this data source, the most recent information they've got for us is that they reported 8:30. So that's just pointing it out. It's not a perfect data source, but it is the data that we get from that data source. This data source happens to be, I believe it's a futures exchange. And then SQ that I think Joan gave us, it reports 227 after the close. It also shows us the ex-dividend date and the dividend amount where that's provided. Right now, you see all these that are 12/30, 1899. That means there was no date provided. And I've asked my programmer to go back in and change that to NA. Actually, several, James. For this particular data feed here, it's accessing, I don't want to say it wrong, it's IEX Exchange, and I'm not sure what the IEX stands for. Right offhand, I'd have to look it up. But there are actually several sets of data, and in fact, when we enable the brokerage integration, you'll also be able to get integration from brokers as we get the integration finished. So the first one will be TradeHawk, Tradier. The second one will be probably Thinkorswim, Interactive Brokers, MBT, which is Allied Bank or Ally Bank. But we show the current short interest, the current 50 and 200 SMA, and I will note that I need to figure out what's going on here, but these numbers, they're close, but they're not perfect. So the 50 SMA and the 200 SMA are different between different data sources. Not sure exactly what's going on there, but I will try to figure that out. And then you can see things like the 5-day change, 1-month change, 3-month and year change, the PE ratio or dividend yield, if that's something you're interested in, the return on assets, return on capital, where that information is available. So a lot of really good information here now. The one that really, really excites me is this next earnings report, because now that we have a source that's providing us this, let's look at trade log. So this is an open trade. We'll look at the log later. One of the things that is currently a manual field on the trade log is the date of the next earnings report. We'll now be able to populate that for you. Yeah, Linda, that's, let me go back to that list. That's a difference in versions. I apologize. I've got a problem that reporting, but I've also got better data than you've got because mine is a new test version that I had not released. I need to verify there are no new bugs caused by this before I release it to you guys, and that will probably be done overnight, and we'll probably release it before the market opens tomorrow. But yeah, that's the problem. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but I'm using a version that you're not using. What are you doing? Okay, back to trade log. So this is really the heart of the program. This is, kind of a log for a single trade. The first thing you do is you fill in what account you're using, what ticker you want to trade, what direction comes populated as the default for this account, and the default for this account is long. It populates with the default amount, but you can change it for every trade. The max dollar you're willing to risk, because that's how I'm choosing to do my position sizing for risk. And as I said, we'll be able to now populate automatically the next date of next earnings report, so you don't have to look that up. This center section, somebody was talking to Rick today about this. Basically, I think of the market conditions section as being my trading rules. Now, again, you probably don't see this kind of thing in very many software demonstrations. We've got a bug in this new test version that I'm running tonight, and so it's not populating the SPY data. I happen to know this account is being measured against the SPY, so when I talk about market bias, that's saying the SPY bias. The long-term SPY bias is bullish, but we're not populating that data right now. The short-term SPY bullish or SPY bias is probably bullish. I think. I would have to check. In my case, this is based on the 5-day trend as opposed to the 50-day. This particular symbol, GHL, that we'll look at here in a minute, is a long-term been trending down, but short-term has been trending up. And the relation of the T line, or 8 EMA, is above the 34 EMA, so that's bullish as well. It's got about $11.5 million worth of stock traded a day. Again, you can see the candles have had multiple dojis here, but you can see the candles of the last 5, and then it does some scanning for you and says it's also scanning for candle signals here, but it's also scanning for you against my rules, and it says this is a pop out of the box setup. It's a bullish W pattern, but it could also be seen as a bearish pennant according to these rules, and that's something I need to tighten up. I can see that my trade goal for this account is to make $250 per trade. If I were to take a trade based on this plan that I put in here for just for argument's sake, the break-even price would be $20.60. Bob, you're correct. It does not handle options. I don't know how, to be honest with you, but I've got 2-3 different users who tell me they use it, and they actually used version 1 to help them plan their options trades. It would not be what I would call a good tool for that, because it's not going to talk about delta. It's not going to talk about, well, any of the Greeks. It doesn't even really handle the non-ticker, non-underlying portions of a Greek position, so the expiration and strike. But somehow they use it for planning out, is this a good trade to take, and then they plan the option trade on top of it. But it shows you for position sizing. You'll notice that this is it's yellow based on the rules, and it's saying that's almost 4% of your account in one trade. Do you really want to take that much risk? And it says it costs a little over $2,000 to enter. It recommended, based on keeping my loss less than $125, I could buy 200 shares, but that's too big for this particular account. So I planned out at only 100 shares, which is just under 4% of the account. Let me go over here to TC2000 charts and show you why I picked this chart out. It's been doing a pop out of the box pattern the last 5 days after a strong run up. We're at a resistance level, and that has been long term. I think I do this off the weekly, and do all of these off the weekly, and that's all great. It reported 2.6, so that's nice. I'm a fib trader as well, and so I dropped the fib lines on there to see what we've got. And these green ellipses show you levels where weekly support and resistance line up pretty tightly to one of the major fib lines. I can come up with one. I have a list. Basically I can put it into a list. I've got a list of all the codes that I gave my programmer to code in for the scans, but I don't have it as a list of the signals that are being scanned, but that's a good idea. Let me write that down. Okay, I wrote that down and I'll get that to my programmers tonight. They're overseas, so we start talking about 1:30 in the morning, my time. Let's see. So that's why I chose this. I'm looking at it when it breaks out of this box. That's where I'm looking to buy. At that point, my stop will be here, and I will quickly raise it up just below this support level. I'm looking at a first target up here, just below this support or this resistance level that is tied to the 38.2 fib extension of this previous run, and then the 61.8, the resistance level that's near the 61.8. And if we were to get all the way through, then there's a resistance level up here about 24.35. So that's what I was looking at. I just entered the data. I'll wait for the screen to refresh. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Rick, and I can tell you that it's, like for the candles, it's most of them, so most of the major ones that certainly that Rick, Doug, or I talk about, or Steve, so Morningstar and the bullish engulfing, and a hammer, and a bullish kicker, and so forth, multiple dojis, and then the same thing on the bearish side. They're all in there. Now, I will say that that is according to my criteria, the scans that I've written for those things, which I feel are pretty good, but again, you have to realize that those are ED scans. What's coming down the road, and again, this is what I talked about earlier, you're buying into ED and buying into the development that I'm going to lead. I've got a new programmer that just started, and I'm putting him on building a standalone scanning widget, which will allow you to either run prepackaged scans that we give you or write your own. So if you don't like the way that I define a Morningstar, for example, Rick or Doug sometimes are willing to accept what, close to but not quite what I would consider a Morningstar. They say it's Morningstar-like. They can loosen it up. They can change the definition of a Morningstar and pick up more items in the scan. Same thing with patterns. Again, those are just the scans that I've written, and there are most of the major ones that we talk about in either the trading services or you've heard us talk about in the room are in there. So, pop out of the box, the J hook, the the flags and the pennants and what have you. So those are the rounded bottom breakout, of course, and all those are in there. What was I talking about? Anyway, so this is a plan that I planned out here. Let's just move this a little bit sideways. So we're talking about, in fact, let's do this. So what we're talking about here is, come on, buying on this breakout here, and I put it in at 2060 with a stop down here about 1998, a first target up here about $22, and a second target up here about 22.85. And if we were to make it to that third target, that's about 2430. In other words, taking off a little bit before each of those resistance levels and focusing on ones where there's convergence between a weekly resistance level and a fib extension point. Yeah, Chris, you can. A couple ways to do that. So if you have multiple brokers and each has different commissions, you can either keep two accounts. So as I said, you can have as many accounts as you want, and each account can have its own commissions regimen set up there. Or you can set it up for whichever is, let's say, your main trading account, and then on a trade-by-trade basis, you can edit the commissions to whatever you want them to be. So, you know, that's very important on a trade-by-trade basis for some of the Canadian traders. I was dumbfounded to find that some of the Canadian brokerages, they don't know until after the trade what they were charged for commissions. So they may be charged $5.99 for one trade, and the same day executed at almost the same instant be charged $6.30 for the opposite, or you know, some other trade. So I was dumbfounded to hear that, but I guess some Canadian brokerages are that way. So you can change any of the commissions that you want. You can have the default, or you can change them, each and every one of them, as you like. You can also record what we call down here in the execution section. Okay, Linda, we'll talk about that here in just a second. Down in the execution section, let's just say I move this to execution. I can then place the order for each of these. I'm waiting on the screen to catch up. There we go. I can place the order for the entry or for any of the exits or the stop. If I'm connected to a brokerage, I can place them all as a group. So an entry price, a stop price, and target prices. It depends on what your brokerage will allow. You can put in a hedging trade cost here as well if that's something you're doing, or if there was some other cost basis adjustment, like you got a dividend during the trade paid to you or something of that next. Sure, absolutely, Wally. You can, and not just one. You can have as many sample accounts as you want, and you know, I'll talk about that. But essentially, what it does here is allow you to trade in individual trades or as groups, depending on what your broker will allow. And that's only the brokers that will integrate for us. At the time being, until we enable the integration, you place the order and it will have you pick the date and time that you executed that order. The other thing that it does for you is it keeps track of, you can put notes down here under trade management, and as you change prices, so I move my stop, it will record that you moved your stop automatically for you, so that when you come back here in 6 months or a year, you can see, well, gee, on this trade I didn't move my stop at all, and I only made whatever, 2%. On these other trades, I've been managing my stops tightly, and I'm making 5% or 10%, whatever the number is. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe when you're managing your stops too tightly, you're losing money because you're getting stopped out early. But it helps you identify these things so that you can do a better job. You can also attach images. So if you want to attach, or any sort of file, but you could attach a screenshot of the chart before, during, and after the trade. And in fact, our charting package has that built in. You can save chart, which is basically take a screenshot of the chart. So it will record in let's just add one. I'm just going to pick one out here. So this is an image that I've looked at or attached, I had previously created, and I can get a quick preview of it if I want, but I can attach as many of those as I want. If I've got a spreadsheet, if I've got a PDF, maybe they did some sort of conference report or an analyst report came out on them, I wanted to attach that, I could do that. The right hand side talks about the trade setup, and it's color coded. As you'll see, the blue side corresponds to this blue line here, so the blue side corresponds to the trade plan. The green side corresponds to the execution section, again with this green line here. And that just shows you some statistics on the trade and where you're at. It also records, once you enter the trade, the price of your comparative ticker. In my case, for this account, SPY. I have another account set up for corresponding to IWM, and I think a third one to the Qs, and I may even have one set up for the diamonds, so that I can track how does that account do versus what the SPY did. How did this trade do? What did the SPY do while this trade was in progress? So it gives us that ability to measure ourselves not only against ourselves but against the overall market. And then lastly, this trade grade area, and this is really important, and it's missing in a lot of tools out there. Allows you to give yourself a grade on trade discipline. How well did you maintain discipline for this trade? It allows you to list all of the different mistakes or add new ones in. If you have something, you made some sort of mistake that's not in the list, add it in and record those, so that when you come back you can say, well, I chased on the entry, or I got stopped out because my stop was too tight. So all of those sorts of things. And then finally you can, through a simple choose the emoji mechanism, you can rate your emotions at the time of entry, during the trade, and at the exit. So again, when you come back a year or two from now, you can see what's the pattern when I'm feeling greedy at entry, what's the pattern when I'm feeling scared at entry, what's the pattern when I'm fearful at exit. Tell you when you shouldn't be trading and what you need to work on getting control of. So that's the whole point. Now let's go over to Account Manager and help Linda with showing her how to set up a new account. Basically, it comes up to whatever account you want to set it to. I'm waiting on the screen to catch up here. It comes up to probably sample account, but whatever account you've set to be the top of the list. You click on the little gear here, and that shows the account properties for whatever the selected account was. But in this case, there's a button up here that says Accounts. That's where you can add a new one. There's a plus sign with the word New there. You click New, give it a new name. So, New Demo Account. You say, what do I want to measure as the long-term trend period? So in this case, I'll leave it at 50 days. Well, no, let's change it just so this one's different. Let's say I want to look at the 34 days as a long-term trend. And in this account, I consider the 3-day trend to be the short term. I want to measure this one against, instead of the IWM, I want to measure this one against, well, no, the other one was SPY, so we'll leave this one IWM. It's starting today. What's the beginning balance? The beginning balance of this account is 100,000. You cannot change the account balance. That will be updated for you automatically. This is where you set your commissions. I think it was Chris I was talking to about that. So, it's $3.99 per share is what or per transaction is what I pay. Or maybe if you're at Interactive Brokers or someplace like that, instead of $3.99, you pay half a penny per share. You can also have a minimum commission. So I think at Interactive Brokers, I can't remember because I don't do small trades to get that, but It's half a penny per share, and I think the minimum is $1. But it will take care of that for you. If you do shorting, you need to know what the loan rate they're charging you is, and I don't know what the number is. And the required margin multiple that they require you to have, maybe it's, I don't know, 3 times, something like that. You can set the default direction for this account, the maximum dollars, because of the way I've got this application configured. The way I figure the shares that I want to buy, do my position sizing, is based on the maximum dollars that I will lose if I'm stopped out. And let's just say I want to do that at $125. This plan duration is only used as a way to estimate the shorting costs of a trade. So if I'm typically in a trade for 10 days, that's what I should put. If I stay in trades for 15 days, that's what I should put. Generally speaking, your shorting costs are going to be negligible, probably no influence at all, unless you hold a short trade for months. There won't be really any shorting costs to consider, but we do consider it. So we've got that all done. We click Save, and now we've got a new demo account listed there. And we've now added a new account. So that's how you do it, Linda. I've been rambling on here, and we've got that one trade planned. Let me just go back over here to the chart. I went through a ton of charts today, and I simply didn't see much that interested me at all because of the market. I think PSTG has some possibility here. This is what I look at in terms of the trend, but it reports 3-1, so that's a week from now. I'm not thrilled about that. It's trying to do a J-hook breakout here, but again, I'm probably just going to completely pass on it because of the 3-1 report date. Wow, that's a slow refresh on the screen. I'm sorry. Yeah, that 3-1 report date's really going to stop me from doing much of anything with that. GHL I already showed you. The other one's oil. This is UCO, the ultra crude for the Dow Jones crude. And this is the ProShares version. Yeah, it's a nice, a nice potential trade. I'm not interested until we get above this resistance level, but once we get up there, I think you can get 8-9%. Yeah, 8.5%, probably before the next resistance at these highs. So above this 25.90, I might like it as a long up into this 28.25 area. And then the last thing that I looked at as a potential was VIX related. Let's just pull this up here, and they all look about the same. This is VXX, which is something that Rick liked today. I don't like it because of this resistance from right over here. I want to see it get above the high of the last 3 days. But above that, it might be worthwhile. I think UVXY is based on the same thing. Might be a better play. I like it better. So this is the UVXY chart, and again, I'll wait on the screen to catch up. Man, this is slow. Omnovi is killing me. Or Webinato, I guess it is now. So it's largely the same chart, just slightly different. And the reason I like this one a little bit better is when we get above this 1824, which corresponds to a shelf level over here and the previous high there, when we get above that, I can eke out, I think it's like 20%. Yeah, 19 and change up to the next resistance level. And so that's why I like this one a little bit better. They're both based on the same thing, so they should generally take off in tandem. if they do. Rick, let's see, what is the limit on trade log items and watch list items? Does it affect bandwidth a lot? Let me see if I can, if you're asking me how many trades can you have, is that what you're saying? You can have as many as you want. How much it impacts your bandwidth depends on a lot of things, and not the least of which is how much bandwidth you have. I honestly can't tell you that every ticker that you add to trade log results in XYZ bytes of data, but I can tell you that about every 15-20 seconds it goes out and requests updates. You can have as many as you want. It's completely unlimited. If you want to stick in your watch list the entire Russell 2000, you can do that. But as you say, the more tickers that you put in there, and it would be a sensitivity thing, we'd have to just play with it, and I don't know what the answer is. I would tell you if I did. Whether it was flattering or not, I would tell you what if I did. I don't know what the answer is as to, logically, there is some number of tickers that once you get above it in a watch list or in a, no, you can have as many watch lists as you want, and you can name them whatever you want. So this one I've got named as small caps, but I've got 5 different names there, and if I want to create a 6th, I just name the list something new and save it. And as I said, each of them can have as many as you want, but as I said, there's logically some limit. If you put 10,000 tickers in a watch list or plan 10,000 trades in trade log, it will have some impact on your bandwidth because it's requesting updates on all of those tickers, price updates. Let me switch over to goals. On the goal section, I have used percent for win size. Okay, I see what you're saying. So the average win size, you would like to be able to do that as a percentage as opposed to dollars. Yeah, there's no reason we can't. We do not have it now, but I can add that to the list. Goals. In percentage. Yeah. I will add that into the list of things that we need to accomplish, and we will get it done. This, that's kind of the neat thing about dealing with small software companies, is that asking that sort of question can get things done for you. Call Microsoft and tell them you want something, and good luck with that. Yeah, TD Ameritrade's trouble. And Tom Sosnoff says the same thing. Since they bought Thinkorswim, it's really gone downhill in terms of they think of themselves as a bank, and that's how they approach everything. They're not in the supporting customers and developing quickly anymore. I will tell you that they have told us repeatedly over the last 3 years, sure, we want to, we want you to integrate with us. That'd be great. We're going to get you set up, and then dead silence. They never give us access to their API. They never enable anything except their pre-built Excel-based real-time data exchange is what they call it. So that is a serious problem, and that's probably as much as we're going to get from them, and that there's just nothing I can do about that. But there are other companies like that Tradier Tradia is a brokerage. They're backed by Fidelity. I think Fidelity is a 1/3 owner, so they're not going anywhere. And they are willing to work with us, and they are hungry. Absolutely, you can. Yeah, you can enter past trades as far back as you have the patience to enter them. If we had, Rick, I don't know if it would do a lot, because Rick and Doug have talked to them and said, listen, we've got 300, 600, whatever the number is, of people in our community, and we want to, do this. How about working with us? And the answer is silence. Doug really, really, really had to fight with them for a long time, and they just weren't interested. Yeah, it might. If we could get all 300 people to do that, that might catch somebody's attention. But I just know what I've experienced, and it has not been pretty from dealing with TD Ameritrade. And the Toss guys, their hands are all bound. The Thinkorswim guys are now managed by TD Ameritrade, so TD Ameritrade makes all the decisions. Format an Excel sheet to import. Yeah, well, that's probably what we'll have to do. And as I said, when I get to the Thinkorswim integration, they do have an Excel-based, they call it real-time data exchange. So it's a Microsoft technology to import data to Excel and hot link it to a data source. And so we'll be able to piggyback off of that. But that's about it. That's the only thing they offer. They claim to offer an API, which is the ability to hook other applications into your account, but they do not follow through. So. I see a couple people typing, so I'll hold on here. Does anybody have any other questions? If you do, get them out there. I'll answer them, and don't be shy. I know that a lot of people have had trouble with after they place their order, they say, oh, I don't get my my order complete email that gives me my license and the download link. Check your spam folder. For some reason, the way our system is set up, a lot of people, over half, I don't know, maybe half, tell me that the order complete email went into their spam folder, but once they looked in their spam folder, they had it. I have no problem, having Rick send you another copy. I have no problems, looking up and sending you what your license number is, but check your spam folder because that may save us some trouble. Oh, one other thing. When you have trouble, reach out to me. Through the application, you can click on Help, Support Ticket, and that will, basically let you send me an email form. You can send me email, and I will show that. I will switch back to slides and show you that address. There you go. You can reach me at either one of those, and those links work, so click on those links and it'll open up. Tell me what you did, what the problem is, if there's an error message, or if, it did something you didn't expect. If you can include a screenshot, that would be awesome. I will get back to you, and I am very responsive. And if need be, I will get on a remote support session with you, and we'll walk through it and figure it out. I can't always solve everything within a phone call, but I will take it to my programmers, and we will solve it as quickly as we possibly can. Okay, guys, if there are no other questions, I will, we'll call it a night, but I do want to give everybody else a chance. You're welcome, guys. Thanks for coming out on a Thursday evening. Yeah, Ken, so do I. And it'll be even better when there's an even better data source. So we'll be combining multiple data sources because in some cases it's not updated, and so they've only got like a November date for a report, and we'll use a second source, and if that second source has a better date, we'll use that. But a lot of them, it's just going to be whatever the company announces, and they don't announce until a week before they, report. Yeah, that's. I thought that was neat too. That we found a source for that. So that can be the difference between making a mistake and not, can it? So. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop the recording here. Then it looks like most of the questions have stopped, and we'll see everybody next week if they want to come on Wednesday after the market closes, 4:15, back here this same room, or next month. Again, if you haven't purchased, do yourself a favor and can strongly consider it before the end of the month, because after March 1st, or after the 1st of March, you will be paying $149 as a setup fee. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it.